Hi guys, welcome back to another video, or your first video here, I don't know. Welcome if you're new here, welcome either way. This video is going to be my mid-year book freakout tag for 2022. I know that I'm halfway through July now, but none of my answers have been books I read in July. So let's just get into it. I reckon I've had a really good half of the year reading wise. I have read a lot more short things than I thought I would, but maybe that's just what I'm gravitating towards these days. I don't know. So let's see, what is the first question? So question one is best book you've read so far this year. This tag doesn't mess around, so I've got that right here. And after all that talk of short fiction, I think I have possibly the longest book on my read shelf. My favourite book that I've read so far this year is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and as I've said in my Goodreads review, and probably to other people as well, this is objectively the best book I've ever read, and I think will ever read. It was so fantastic. I wouldn't cut a single line from here. It was so good. This book follows four friends who meet in college, and how the lives of them and everyone around them sort of interweave throughout their life. I really do feel like I have known these characters for years and years, and the sort of central character of this is one of the four called Jude, and it's essentially about Jude's life and how the four of them together interact with him, and it's just so incredibly good. I know that I'm not doing this book justice. I don't even know what it says on the back. Oh, it's literally just shortlisted for the different prizes and then a bunch of quotes from newspapers about how good it is. So I don't even know if this knows how to sort of describe itself to do it justice. This book is heartbreaking, but if you feel like you can get through it, I mean, all the trigger warnings, all of them, if you feel like you can get through the difficult subject matter of this, it's so worth the read. Question two is the best sequel you've read so far this year. My answer is going to be Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor, which is the sequel to Daughter of Smoke and Bone. And I was slightly worried about this feeling like a middle story or a middle book in a trilogy, and it absolutely did not. This continued to be an excellent addition to the series, and I really cannot wait to see how this one ends. Again, if I go through the plot of this, it will spoil the first one. So the basic premise of Daughter of Smoke and Bone is you have a main character, Kaoru, who is trying to live her life as an art student and live a normal life, but also runs errands for monsters, and one day she is attacked by an angel, and it sort of sets off the plot from there. And this series, I think, is a testament to what paranormal romance should and could have been in its heyday. I think it absolutely stands out now. This one took me a little bit longer to read because there were a couple of chapters in the middle, or there's a point in the middle where I found it very hard to read because the main character was being so controlled in her situation, and I think that it was just a difficult time. But getting through that section, and I think there was a really good payoff. I also found that there was one reveal where I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, because I think that if that reveal had happened slightly later, I think it would have been more shocking. But in general, 5 stars. Those two things didn't make me knock off a star. Although I did notice at the end of this that there might be a love triangle forming, and I'm very, very nervous. I really hope it doesn't, but I would be very interested to see how this pans out. Oh, something else I do want to mention about this is that a lot of young adult paranormal romances is a case of a romance with a subplot of war, which has always been a weird combination for me, but this is very much a war with a subplot of romance. I think that they definitely don't shy away in terms of the discussions of war and violence breeding more violence, and sort of the atrocities that both sides have and are committing, and I think this was really interesting. So question 3 is an anticipated new release that has already been released that you want to read. And question 4, an anticipated new release that is to be released in the latter half of the year that you are really excited about. Now, I have decided, again, not to answer these 2 questions. When I hear about books that are coming out that I want to read, I add them to my to buy shelf on Goodreads, and I'll get to them when I get to them. My aim is to prioritise the books that I already own and to try and keep my TBR pile at least somewhat manageable, so I don't tend to immediately buy books when they release. Question 5 is biggest disappointment of the year. So for me, this would be The Red Barn. I cannot remember who this is by, but I think this is more to do with the expectation that the back of the book and the cover led me to believe. So from the cover and from the synopsis, I had assumed that it was going to be an isolated cozy mystery in the vein of an Agatha Christie. You have you have 2 couples going home from a party, there's a snowstorm, and they get trapped inside the house, but not everyone makes it back to the house alive, and it goes from there. And I thought it was going to be, a mystery novel, which it wasn't. It was literally just about, affairs and cheating and relationships, and it had no substance. And I think that the relationships between the characters personally wasn't interesting enough to hold my attention. So yeah, this is rather a disappointment. And to counter that, question 6 is biggest surprise of the year. And that for me is Immaculate by Oliver Lansley. I mean, I had no expectations going in. I had it recommended by a friend of mine. Because I had no previous experience with the author, I didn't have any expectations. And I really, really loved this. I was also very worried from the synopsis with all the religious references. I was worried how those were going to be handled, but I shouldn't have been worried. They were handled excellently. This is a play about a woman who is pregnant, can't figure out why she's pregnant or how, because she hasn't had sex in over 9 months, and a bunch of people arrive at her flat, either claiming to be or know the father, 2 of those being God and the devil, and hilarity ensues. This was so good. I really hope to see this play put on, and I would highly recommend it. Question 7 is favourite new author. Now, normally I would pick an author here that I've read several books from so that I can sort of confirm they are a favourite, but this year I am going to do something a bit different. This year my answer is going to be Chuck Tingle. I've only read one very, very short novel of his this year, but I just think in terms of learning about him as an author and as a person, I just think he's great. He is incredibly inclusive in his work. He is just a great activist and really just sounds like an amazing person. The book that I read was Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt, which was a hilarious novel, which with a surprising amount of world building in it from how short it was. I can't imagine it being more than about 30 pages. And it's essentially about a near future world where cloning has been invented for people, but there's a lot of ethics surrounding it. So a group of scientists are trying not to clone an entire person, but clone sections of a person and see how that works. And they end up succeeding with a flying pair of butt cheeks, and it just, plot goes on from there. And it is a really, really hilarious novel. And I just think that I will be learning far more about Chuck Tingle and the rest of his work just throughout my life. It was a lot of fun. Question 8 is newest fictional crush, which again, I'm not going to be answering. I don't have crushes on fictional characters, really. I think that a lot of times if you have a sort of swoony, as they say, love interest in a book, why did I put that in air quotes? Anyway, what I like about that character is often how that character is perceived by the main character. So in which case, it's not that I am swooning over the character, it's that I like their chemistry together as a pair, and so I often don't really get crushes on fictional characters, so skip. Question 9 though is newest favourite fictional character, and that just has to be Jude St. Francis. I mean, I just feel like I know I mean, all of these characters, I know them so well, but with Jude, he goes through such heartbreaking situations in this novel, and I just think it's just so beautiful. I know that I've sung its praises earlier in the video, but I think in terms of, again, with all the characters, but Jude especially, I think that these characters will stay so distinct in my mind, I think, no matter how many other books I read in my life. Question 10 is a book that made you cry, and unsurprisingly, this is going to be my answer again. Books don't make me cry very often. I think that it's happened very few times throughout my life, and I was listening to this, or to the end of this book, on a car journey from Cardiff to Cornwall, and I just sobbed. Like, I sobbed near the end, and I sobbed at the end. Like, this, I don't think I've ever cried in a book more than reading this one, and it was just so heartbreaking. So this is my answer again. I do have a physical copy of this book, but it's on my top shelf and I can't be bothered to get it down. But question 11 is a book that made you happy, and for that I'm going to have to answer with another Jonas Jonasson book. I'm pretty sure I answered the same thing, not the same book, but another book by him for last year's, and that is The Girl Who Saved the King of Sweden. And this was just so hilarious. Jonasson just has such a way of writing characters and situations that are so utterly ridiculous but really smart. I think that he is one of the very few people who I think has completely mastered absurdism in writing, and not just making it stupid and ridiculous, but making it really clever. It is about a young girl who leaves Africa looking for a better life and enters Sweden and ends up in the possession of a nuclear bomb and keeps on trying to get rid of this bomb because she doesn't want it. And it's about her meeting a set of twins who are actually the same person, and I think it's much less ridiculous than 100-Year-Old Man, but actually this one is my personal favourite so far. I think that it was incredibly clever, and just there are moments of this that are just so la funny. I really recommend his work if you haven't heard of him and want to try him out. Question 12 is the most beautiful book that you bought or acquired this year, and for me that would have to be The Complete Fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, and this is one of the Barnes & Noble exclusive leather-bound classics editions, and they just put so much effort into making these books completely stunning. I know that this has a lot of plastic on it. Something I've noticed over the past couple of years is that these specific editions have been a lot harder to find. I wonder whether or not Waterstones and Foils are trying to get people to buy the cloth-bound editions, because that's, I think, the British edition set that they're trying to sell. But I don't know, I think they're losing a lot of money if they're not stocking these, because they are stunning. And yeah, so when I saw this, I was like, well, I'm getting that. So yes, this one. And the final question, question 13, is a book that I have to read by the end of the year. Now, obviously I could put any book on my physical TBR on here, but the book I'm choosing for this question is Birthday by Meredith Russo. Now, this, I probably haven't read it because of the fact that I haven't been able to find an audiobook for it, but realistically I do want to finish this out by the end of the year, because that would wrap up my entire TBR for my Virgo vlog series, and I do just want to sort of do a mini wrap up for that because I never actually finished it. I mean, I do want to read this book, but I think that I'm putting this on here mainly to finish the video, so I'll get around to this when I get around to this. And there you have it. That is my mid-year book freakout tag. I hope that I was able to give you some recommendations here, and please tell me about how your sort of reading is going in general. I'd love to hear it down in the comments below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.